by what they've read and seen since, describing essentially what they remember.
Yeah.
It's just a nice part of the world. It really is. Yeah.
Everybody's so helpful.
Hang on now. Let's see how our Tinker Toys are all put together here. Have we got any kind of an audio level?
Yeah, if you just want to give me a little bit of...
Glenn, would you just say a couple things? Okay, first of all, the phone was ringing, right?
Okay, the way I became involved in this was started out in the early afternoon, around probably 1:30 in the afternoon, and I received a telephone call from the mortuary officer out at the Walker Air Force Base, Army Airfield Base, and he was inquiring about what would be the smallest possible casket that we could get that would be hermetically sealed. And at that time, I know that we had used like the 4 feet and caskets. We had used those before, but I thought they also made them in a 3/6. So, he wanted to know if we had any in stock, and I said no, but if I can make a call to Amarillo, I can have him in, by 7 o'clock the next morning on a truck. So he said, I'll get back to you. And that was the first contact that I had with the base.
And then what?
Then he called back, probably 45 minutes or so later. And he said, I need to ask you some more questions. He said, in case something like this should happen, he said, we need to know what the preparation, what your preparations are for the bodies that had been laying out in the elements, And he said, we need to know also what if your treatments of the bodies are the remains, what could you do to them, and if your treatments, would it change any of the chemical breakdown of the tissues, the blood? Would it make a difference? And I said, I thought probably it would. And I said, of course, he knew exactly how we would treat those bodies because we have an outline from them and what we really have to do. I think he already at that point knew exactly what we would have to do.
Did he disclose to you what he had?
No, I told him. I said, if you have a problem, if you want, if you have something you don't really know what to do about it, let me come out, and I'll, try to help you do whatever you want to do. And he said.
Okay.
And he said, no. He said.
Let's just back up just a minute there. Let's start again with you were saying you told him that you can come out and take care of what he had, right?
Yeah.
Why don't you pick it up from that point again?
So, and he said, well, we don't really have anything. He said, we're sitting here thinking in case we should get involved in something like this, what would be our preparation? Should we do? Then I went through. I said, do you really want to know how we would do it? Well, yes, we would like to know. So that's when I explained to him that we would have the vats that we would fill up with formaldehyde solution with water, and we put the bodies in them, let them stay there for 24 hours, and then take them out. And then we would pack the bodies in, would be a sawdust and really a lime, what we would pack them in, then wrap them in the plastic. That's bodies that were badly decomposed. If there was tissue, deep tissue, we would have to do it hypodermically with needles to get to the deep tissue. Then we would have to aspirate the cavities if the cavities hadn't already ruptured, and then put some cavity fluid in those. I said that's, kind of normal procedure.
Now, at one point, you finally offered to take care of it for them.
Well, I offered 2-3 times, yeah.
Can you review what that conversation at that point?
You mean when I offered to take care of them?
Yeah.
he said, well, we don't really, right at this time, we don't really need your assistance, but he said, in case something like this should happen, then he said we would be prepared and we would know what to do. Then we got back onto the subject of maybe not damaging any of the chemicals, compounds or anything with the bodies, or tissues, whatever, because and they wanted, how would you pick bodies up like that, and what would you do not to contaminate any of it?
Didn't this begin to seem a little strange to you at that point?
Well, I thought maybe what happened, they might have had a VIP or, some officer and something that happened. Maybe they didn't want, wanted to keep it quiet, and they probably wanted to do it themselves, not be involved with the civilian businesses or anything. Their name, Raymond Otero, also told me that he knew my file was there. Joe Lucas, that was the manager at that time, knew my files were there. And he and I'd had some personal problems, and he said, get rid of his damn files. We don't want anything that remind us of him. And that's where the files went, really.
There was some discussion about how to preserve the bodies,
Right.
dry ice and that sort of thing, and you kind of addressed
Oh, well,
where they got the ice and things.
Okay, then the mortuary officer, what would you do if you had to ship one out? And but you couldn't do anything to it. I mean, that you couldn't, do any treatments or anything. What would you do? I said the only thing you could do, that I would suggest, that first thing, if you have a problem, don't want to destroy any of the tissue, any blood cells, anything that you don't want to destroy, I would suggest that you contact a pathologist. And I said, I'm sure the Army Airfield, somebody's got some pathologists around. I didn't know that they had one in Roswell, but I said, if I were you, I'd call a pathologist and ask him how he would like to have it done, or whatever you're going to do, or whatever it is. You better do what the pathologist, because he's the one that's going to do the autopsy and make the reports. But I said, the only thing I know you could do is just go to Clardy's Dairy or Sunset Creamery, we had 2 at the time, and buy all the dry ice you can and pack them in dry ice, if that's possible. And that's what I suggest that they do.
Excuse me, Glenn, you're hitting my mic with your
Oh, sorry about that.
It's all right. I've done it at least 8 times already
it's
this
not
week.
personal.
No.
Okay, what do you think?
I think, as a suggestion, you might want to do that part again if you think you'd like to use it, because
The dry ice?
you probably hit it just a few times. And
Oh, sorry about that.
Isn't this a picky business?
Glenn Dennis, take 2, Clarity
Yeah.
Dairy.
All right, let's go back and go over the dry ice then again.
Well, okay. What I suggested to the mortuary officer, I suggested this to the mortuary officer and we discussed this probably for 20 minutes or better on the telephone. And I kept telling him, hey, if you have a problem, if you got something out there, if you need our services, we have the contract, I would be glad to come out and help you take care of it. And he said, no, this is for future. Kept always referring this was for future use in case we did have something. But then I said, well, first thing you better do, you better get a hold of a pathologist. I don't know whether you have one at the base, but I know you probably have the top pathologist, something similar to those words. And I said, that's what I do, and you better let him give you the instructions, and then you better do what he tells you to do, because he's the one that's going to do the autopsy. And if it's this sensitive, you better do what he tells you. But I said, the only other suggestion I can make, that you go to Clardy's Dairy or you go to Sunset Creamery, buy all the dry ice you can and pack whatever you have, whatever the problem is, you better pack it in dry ice and then do whatever you have to do with it, because that's the only way. They tried to put it in the morgue. Out at the morgue, they had 2 refrigerated body compartments that we used to put them in, and then we'd go out and get the bodies from there. But they always brought the airmen to us, but on the dependents and everything, we went out for them. But they weren't cold enough, and it became so offensive. They were afraid they were going to, upset everybody in the hospital. So they later moved them over to a hangar, and that's the last that she knew anything about them too. The lieutenant knew anything about them. but she didn't know how they moved it or anything about it. But they were taken to a hangar because the odor was so offensive they couldn't. That, like they said, it was upsetting everything.
That's great. Fantastic. Yeah.
Did she ever tell you where she thought or where she was told the bodies went from Roswell?
I'm sorry,
Where the bodies went from Roswell?
Did you know where they were shipped out? Did you know where they went?
she didn't know.
You never,
She never told me. She never mentioned any.
never suggested them.
No suggestion whatsoever. She just said that the last she heard they were in a hangar, and that's all she knows. And we never discussed anything else.
I guess if that takes care of everything, would you like to watch it?
What is a portion of it, just to get an idea? You don't need to watch the whole.
Sure. Let's turn it around and watch it.
Do you
Well, no, I didn't go out to the base. Yeah, I was curious, but I didn't go out to the base, and probably a couple hours later, when we got to the base, then he walked into the emergency room. I didn't have to take him in. They didn't bring out a gurney or anything. He just walked in on his own. Then I never did see him after that. Then I had this friend that I wanted to talk to and see.